Hey, thanks for joining us for Finding Hope in Mental Illness. My name is Ryan Smallwood. I'm the lead pastor at Aldersgate Church. And over the next 7 episodes, myself and some others are going to talk to us about finding hope in mental illness. We talk about hope in lots of different ways. Desmond Tutu was the one who said, hope is being able to see that there is light despite all the darkness. And the writer of Proverbs chapter 13, verse 12 said, when hope's dream seems to drag on and on, the delay can be depressing. And if you're tuning in, more than likely you either understand this or you know someone who understands this. This darkness that Desmond Tutu talked about, or this deferredness of the hope that the writer of Proverbs talks about. And it can be an anxiety, it can be a depression, it can be situational, it can be chronic, and there are other forms of mental illness as well. Sometimes we turn to substance abuse issues in mental illness. And over the next 7 episodes, we're going to talk about all of these things. Let me give you another definition of hope, actually using its own letters. Hold on, pain ends. Just hold on, the pain ends. And for the next 7 episodes, I want to talk to you about holding on and letting the pain in. In this first episode titled, There is Hope, let me just share with you 3 things. The first thing I want to share with you is you are not alone. You may think you are alone, but you are not alone. If you're struggling with anxiety or depression or another form of mental illness, you are not alone. In fact, 1 out of every 5 adults in the United States of America at some point in their life struggle with some form of mental illness. And that's at any given time. Over all their lifetime, 1 out of every 2 adults will struggle. 1/2 of us will struggle with some form of mental illness during our lifetime. 1 out of every 3 teenagers is experiencing some form of anxiety or depression. And 54% of college students report they feel overwhelming anxiety. And here just recently with the COVID pandemic that we're living through, rates of depression and anxiety have increased 30%. And unfortunately, suicide rates have hit an all-time high. You are not alone if this is the place that you are living in right now. In fact, I can talk to you about a lot of Bible characters who struggled with anxiety and depression. We can talk about Bible characters like Abraham, and we can talk about Jonah, and we can talk about Job and Elijah. We can talk in the New Testament about Paul. There are many people in the Bible who struggled with anxiety and depression. There are people all around you today that struggle with anxiety and depression or other mental disorders, and some of them that you would be surprised to know they struggle with. In fact, we're going to give you a bonus episode to this Finding Hope series with one of our own pastors here at Aldersgate Church, Nathan Teeters, who's our college pastor, who will talk to you about his own struggle with depression and even being on the brink of wanting to take his own life. And I would encourage you to join in and listen to that. The point is that you are not alone. Sometimes in that darkness, it's tempting to think you're the only one struggling. You're the only one feeling that way. You're the only one who knows how you're thinking and feeling, but you are not the only one. The second thing I want to leave you with in this episode is this. It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way. We use that phrase here at Aldersgate a lot. It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way. In other words, it's okay to struggle with anxiety and depression or anything else when it comes to a mental disorder or a mental illness, but it's not okay to stay that way. Can I just share it with you this way? If you are struggling with anxiety, depression, or a mental illness, you have a sick brain. Now, that may sound awkward to you, but think about it this way. Someone who has heart problems has a sick heart, or someone who has liver problems has a sick liver. Someone who broke their arm has a sick bone. And whatever the level of the sickness is, it leads to this thing we call disability, which is the inability for someone to cope with or perform their normal daily activities or do whatever it is that they do on a normal day. If you have a broken arm and you're right-handed, then you have a certain amount of disability because you're not able to use your right arm as you normally use your right arm. It's the same thing if you have a disabled liver or a disabled heart. If you're struggling with anxiety or depression or another mental disorder, you have a sick brain. And because of that, you have a disability. There are things that you're not able to do on a normal basis. You may not think clearly. You may not be able to focus clearly. You may not be able to answer questions clearly. You may not be able to do lots of things clearly. But it's because your brain's sick. And it's okay, just like your arm is sick or your heart or your liver. But if my arm's broken, I go get it fixed, or my heart or my liver. And it's the same with your brain. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way. Do you know that only 41% of people that are diagnosed with a mental illness will use any form of a mental health service in a given year? And there are lots of different reasons for that. Maybe it's because of cost. Maybe it's because of the stigma that comes with it. Maybe it's because of access to those resources. It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way. Here's a third thing I would share with you in this episode. I need to talk about it. You need to talk about it. We can't stay in this darkness alone, but we have to talk about it. We have to talk about mental illnesses and emotional disorders as though they were common illnesses in a fallen world, because that's what they are. They're common illnesses in a broken, fallen, messed up world. It's that whole concept of darkness that Desmond Tutu talked about, that the hope is what brings light into that darkness. You see, and when we're in those places of darkness, whether it's anxiety or depression or a substance abuse disorder or whatever it might be, we think that the worst thing we can do is bring it into the light. But the reality is, the best thing we can do is bring it into the light. We don't know there's problems until we bring those things into the light. It's just like discovering you have cockroaches in your house. You don't discover them in the darkness, you discover them in the light. And it's bringing these things into the light that is the first step into finding healing and wholeness. It's that first step of hope. And so we want to help you do that. We want you to do more than just listen in or eavesdrop in on these conversations that we're going to be having in this Finding Hope in Mental Illness series. We want to give you a safe place to bring things into the light, a safe place where you can share with other people. And so you'll see on the screen now a way that you can do that. And we would encourage you to join into that group. And you don't even have to talk. You can just let it be a place where you eavesdrop in on at first. But it will become a place for you, a very safe and secure place where you can realize, number one, you're not alone. Number two, it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way. And number three, you need to talk about it. Let me end this session with a prayer for you or for anyone you know who may be struggling with finding hope in an area of mental illness. And the prayer comes from Romans chapter 15, verse 13. And the prayer is this: may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in faith, so that you overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. It's my prayer that you'll find the hope that God, through the power of the Holy Spirit, can give you. Hold on. The pain ends. There is hope.